Alright, quickly just before it starts, the audio in today's video, I've just realised now as I'm about to finish it all off, is echoey for some reason, my voice. I don't know why, I've not done anything different, and it sucks, so sorry if you noticed it. It's not normally like that and probably won't be in future, and if you wouldn't have noticed it, then I wish I hadn't said anything. Okay, here we go. Gamers of the world, welcome to another production by yours truly. I am GetGoodGuy, this is Battlefield 5, and today I'm going over a concept that really isn't talked about very much at all, and I think it really should be. In fact, I imagine it pretty much never enters the minds of most players. We're going to be looking at the real true value of using and attaining a solid level of ability with weapons that most players hate, dislike, or just simply don't use due to other options that they perceive as being better. Or they use options that are just straight up better, but there's still value to using these other guns. And so these guns in question aren't often the best weapons in the game. In fact, they very rarely are, as most top tier weapons are used fairly heavily in FPS games for that very reason. People generally like to use the best stuff because, well, obviously they do. But there are genuine reasons to use some of the off-meta weapons, or weapons that could perhaps be viewed as skill cannons. Really anything within the spectrum of potency, as long as it can add value to your play, whether it's top tier, bottom tier, whatever it is. Unless it's the Liberator, in which case, I got nothing for you. So today I'll go into that in some detail, add in some specific examples so maybe you can go and try them out and have some fun. Plus I want to cover just quickly at the end some very quick stuff about plans for the channel and streaming and stuff like that. So if you're extra interested in more content from me, then stick around for that. But to the point, and to clarify, there is no hard rule here that all weapons that aren't super popular are worth using. Nor am I saying you should use them all the time. And no, I'm not saying that absolutely everything that isn't the meta is hated, alright? The title just needs to give a snapshot of the premise of the video within a certain amount of characters, so that's what we've gone for. So, why use something that most others don't? Well, to start with, and there are multiple reasons, but to start with, because it can help you to find hidden gems, or weapons that are obviously good to some, but their viability just doesn't make it to the mass consciousness of the player base. While the vast majority of players are using the same grouping of weapons that then spreads that usage. Because generally, people are influenced by what they see a lot or what they're killed by a lot. And it's not hard to work out why. If you get killed by a specific weapon over and over, you're probably going to get the, albeit potentially biased, impression that it's really good. So you'll likely give it a look, put some time into it. And now you've joined the masses and are spreading its usage even further. Now there's nothing wrong with that, of course. And a weapon that's used a lot is probably pretty good, at least most of the time. Or perhaps just easy to use. But it's an example of how some pretty great weapons can be overlooked, especially some weapons that are great for certain playstyles, as opposed to just mass generic usage. For example, and I'll talk about and show this weapon a little in a while, for a really long time the AGM/42 was one of my favourite weapons in the entire game. But not only was it one of my favourites, but also one of my best. 100 kill games, high KDs, effective usage to win games, finish high on the board and all of that stuff, all the good stuff. I really did actually play better with that weapon than a lot of the more meta picks, because the AGM/42 is a great gun, but only a tiny percentage of players seem to use it, and I think it probably has too many requirements to be utilised well for a lot of players. But if I'd personally just followed the commonly used meta, I'd have missed out on a gun that was awesome for me. So don't lock yourself out of some guns that might connect with just how you like to play. But there's more, of course. The next reason why learning to love guns that others hate is important is because it expands your playbook, something I've mentioned multiple times on this channel previously. Learning and mastering more aspects of the game than other players gives you a solid advantage over them, because while gun skill, positioning and all that is huge for your performance, so is knowledge and game sense. By at least trying out and attaining a decent understanding of weapons that others don't touch, you'll become aware of perhaps those rare specific times when using them will actually benefit you. You'll know what weaknesses they have that you can pounce on when an enemy is actually using that weapon for once, and other reasons and extrapolations around that subject. And this goes for gadgets as well, because while say the Dynamite and the Piat aren't unpopular at all, they're probably quite popular in this case, how many people are actually using them particularly well, anywhere near their max potential? I'd say not many at all. How many people actually know the value of using a supply crate rather than the pouches sometimes? I'd say again, not many, and I'm a pouch user most of the time, but there are the odd instances where a crate is useful, and if you never use it, you just don't find out. out? Or how many people know when and where using a spawn beacon is a good idea or a bad idea? It's really not many, I'd say. And this goes for vehicles as well, by the way, something that I myself am at fault for massively. I just don't use vehicles because I don't enjoy them, and I'm not really going to change that because it's not fun for me. But if I did use them, I'd know a lot more about how to counter them, so I'm accepting that failing. My point being, if you are interested in using other stuff, then absolutely do it. You see where I'm going with this? The more you use, the more you learn, the more fleshed out a player you'll be. And this brings us to another reason why using options that aren't top picks can be a great idea. Because if you get good with them and combine that with the enemy not being used to fighting against them, well, you've put yourself in a really good spot. Now, as alluded to before, you can't be doing this all the time. Otherwise, such weapons wouldn't be hated or less popular or just not picked as often in the first place. But if you select something for the right situation, the enemy simply isn't going to be prepared for it a lot of the time because they just don't see it. Because when we're playing, we are all at least somewhat conditioned by what tends to happen around us most of the time. No matter how good or bad a player we are, we're used to where people usually come from. We're used to the commonly used routes. We're used to fighting generally the same weapons in the same areas, and we're used to the average way in which a gunfight plays out, which is also why flanking works, because most people don't. So the people that do flank get pretty easy kills. And so back to my point, when you suddenly get gunned down in a way that's totally out of the norm, it's because we sometimes just aren't prepared for it. You know, like, oh, there's a guy using a shotgun in this lobby, huh? And, oh, I didn't expect to see him in this area with that. Or, oh, that dude is using something with insane hipfire, and he could totally outstrafe me with it because of that, etc, etc. I'm sure you get what I'm saying. And let's delve into some specific examples. Now, this is all prior to whatever the TTK or gunplay changes end up being, so this may not be totally accurate after those are in place. And also, for this bit, the footage used will probably look a little more rough. When talking about subjects like this, I like to go and grab footage from old videos to show that I do actually use these things. What I'm saying is genuine and I'm not making it up for content, and you can see what my actual experience of using them is like. But YouTube's compression of videos isn't great, so it looks a little bit less crisp the second time around. Oh, and this is from a console perspective, by the way. If some details are different on PC, then so be it. Keep that in mind. Okay, so I mentioned shotguns, a weapon type that is barely used when compared with almost any other kind of gun in the game. And it's not hard to see why. Large maps, open areas, a lack of circumstances in which they're viable. Why bother, right? Well, often, yes, that's true. But in the right area, or in the right mode, or honestly, in totally the wrong area on the wrong mode, but if you're really good with them, you're gonna cause some people some huge issues. When they've thrown on a Thompson or a Suomi, thinking they're gonna slay out pretty much anything they find up close, a shotgun will give them a really rude awakening. Or in a fairly rangy area, if you're effective at moving from cover to cover with a shotgun, and knowing how to traverse the map, and position yourself well, there's no way that the dozens of players using the typical semi-auto rifles are going to expect to be blasted by you with absolute ease. And of course, you could put on slug rounds or use the rifle round with the M30 drilling and all that kind of stuff. And so actually learning to use a shotgun properly and finding out why they aren't always super low skilled weapons and why they can actually be very dangerous could be very beneficial for you, at least when the situation allows it, or again if you're just really good. Or what about the 8GM/42 that I said I'd talk about? Many people feel this weapon doesn't do enough damage per bullet, that the magazine is too small for how many shots you need and such like. And to that I say, good, fantastic, because a tiny amount of people actually using this gun and being good with it is of massive benefit to me. Guys, it's a full bullet body shot kill, firing at 449 rounds per minute according to sim.gg, providing a very slightly faster optimal kill time at essentially all ranges when compared with, say, the Gewehr 43, which I think is, or at least was, much more popular. This is not a slow killing gun at all, although good target acquisition and tracking are basically required, of course, which will rule some people out, along with a fairly fast trigger finger being needed. But still, like, I haven't even touched upon the best part. It's a 2-shot headshot kill at 449 rounds per minute, at least at the time of recording this, and it's pretty stable as well, so it's not even that hard to do in my opinion. I guess that's arguable, but that's how I find it. Because while it's not the easiest weapon to use overall, it means it can drop people at close range by hammering the trigger, if you can stay on target, and then counter snipe at long range with 2 quick headshots. If you've never tried out the AGM/42 properly, go and do it, just in case you connect with it. I know most of you won't like it, but a few will, and well, you can thank me later if that's you. I highly recommend the detachable magazine specialization in order to mitigate all of that reloading at least a bit. Shall we do another example, just quickly? What about about the FG42 of the support class. It's got a low magazine count, doesn't have the range potential that a lot of the weapons in the class have and all that. It's absolutely not a top tier option in my eyes, but for getting up close with support and shredding some people, well, the FG42 deserves a look. It's pretty lethal, almost the total opposite kind of deal to the majority of LMGs, and you have the ability to run about an ADS with it, which you don't with the MMGs. I very rarely see an FG42, but I certainly know when I've been shot by one. It's not going to be viable all of the time, as I've really tried to stress for this topic today, but sometimes the FG can be a monster, so learn when that is and surprise the opposition. Now, of course, realistically, using the top meta stuff is going to be the best option most of the time, but if most of the time isn't enough for you, if you want to learn more, improve, and take advantage of all of the time, then keep in mind what I've said today. Go and experiment, find your hidden gems, master those skill cannons, catch the enemy unaware, and become a more complete player. So I think that lays out a pretty strong case overall for expanding your horizons. But of course, if you don't wish to do that, then that's up to you. It doesn't affect me in any way. If you want to keep using what already works for you, or you have fun already, then more power to you. I'm just here to share what I can and try to help and entertain. So now let me know in the comments what your off-meta picks are. Which guns you use that you feel others don't and why. That should be very interesting to read. And now I just want to quickly mention that I shall be returning to streaming soon. Probably without a mask or anything this time, as I'm tired of hearing people complain about something that seemed just so unimportant. And it will be back on Mixer. Link is in the description and my pinned comment if you want to follow me and catch the streams. I'd appreciate it. I actually stopped streaming for a while for a multitude of reasons, which I explained on Twitter, and I don't really want to go into detail about here, so do follow me on Twitter as well to hear a lot more from me. I share a lot of info on there and interact with people. Link again is in the description and my pinned comment. But a very basic quick explanation is I had an offer to stream elsewhere on a different platform with instant partnership and guaranteed finances, which sounded awesome, but due to some things to do with me, with my life, and feeling that Mixer is currently at least a better viewing platform for you guys, I'm currently staying on that platform and working to get partnered there instead. It doesn't always have to be about money, sometimes it's about other things such as the audience and your life. And that's what I have to say about this one today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, a like from you would be really appreciated. Subscribe and turn on notifications to catch my future content, and feel free to join my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. Here's the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with all that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. Okay, so full disclosure, I just paused the recording to think of a better example, and I have one. It's again from Destiny, which I mentioned earlier, because apparently I love Destiny, which I really do, and totally wish sometimes this was a Destiny channel. Leave your Fs in the chat, please. Okay, so this is from quite a long time ago in Destiny 1.